Former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, which means he won't be going to New York to be the Giants offensive coordinator. Instead, he'll be leaving Baltimore to become the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, who chose Monken over the Rams passing game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase and over their own defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, which creates its own set of issues. But the Ravens have locked in on the offensive side of the football. By bringing in Monken, they have somebody to run their offense and not have to worry about going out to get a coach that they feel like could elevate the offense. They feel like their defense is strong enough to go on. They'd like to bring back Jim Schwartz, even if he doesn't want to be back right now. But they wanted somebody to help elevate the offense. They believe Todd Monken will be able to do that for the Browns instead of the New York Giants this year. And so they have now hired Todd Monken as the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Adam with us all show long. Interesting so far. For the majority, we've seen these teams go with experience for these head coaching jobs. Hawk and Dan here. Hawk, what do you think of Monken's fit for the Browns, specifically an organization you know well?
Yeah, I think it fits for what they're doing now. I think Monken's a good coach, right? Like, I think even with his offense, and you saw with Lamar, you've seen it at his height when Lamar was an MVP and they had one of the top offenses. And you've seen it sputter a little bit after Lamar got hurt and, some of the back channel issues. But the thing about Monken is he has familiarity with the organization, was an offensive coordinator there. And I think for what he does offensively and what the Browns have done traditionally is they're making the personnel decisions. They're hopeful that they can have a defensive coordinator like Schwartz stick around. I guess that remains to be seen. But if you know that's taken care of, personnel is taken care of. We need a head coach who can command a room, has been coaching in the NFL for a long time, and then 3 words: development of offense, elevation of offense, and stability of offense. And that puts them closer than where they were previously if they can do those things.
Yeah. The initial reaction I had when I saw the news break was, whew, what a massive loss for the Giants.
Yeah.
What a massive loss for the New York Giants. We'll get into that. For the Browns, Monken's a good coach. It feels cautious. It feels a little bit scared. That those two things can be the case. This is an organization that had the opportunity. I can't imagine what it's like to be a Browns fan because it had the opportunity to let's do something different. Let's do something that maybe other people aren't trying. And I understand the fear of maybe hiring someone that might be too young because I remember when Joe Brady was starting to get interviews, it was his Rolodex isn't big enough with assistants. I remember when Kevin Demoff hired Sean McVay and hearing him verbally say, I might be a year or two early, but
really
I could
fast,
not
was
wait.
there a Joe Brady or a potential Sean McVay in this cycle?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Grant Udinsky, who I understand goes back to Jacksonville, Scheelhaase from L.A. It was just the opportunity to maybe do something that gives Cleveland Browns fans some hope of, all right, I have no idea if this is going to be good or the right choice, but there was maybe some excitement. You're attached. I mean, is there excitement? That doesn't mean it won't work out.
I think it varies across the board. I feel like, to your point, you go into the process early on. Monken was a guy that not a lot of people requested interviews for, but the Browns were very early in their interest with him. I mean, they requested that when he was still a Baltimore Raven. So that gave you some inclination that it was something that they were really considering, based on probably their experience with him in the building. From a fan perspective, I don't know if there was going to be a hire with the options that they had available to him. That was going to bring excitement.
Sure.
And that is the Cleveland Brown fan experience, and rightfully so, based on the results that haven't been there.
Before Shedeur gets in, don't you believe, though, that the team, and I know it sounds outrageous, is a little bit closer to being respectable than maybe the national narrative? The defense is loaded. Offensive talent's missing.
Well, what do you do about quarterback? I mean,
that's going to be a huge part of this, and how much Monken wants. Is it Shedeur? Is it Gabriel? Is it one of those 2 first-round picks?
Well, that's the point. They have a really great young offensive core. You see the running backs. You see the tight end. Monken runs a ton of 21 personnel and does that really, really well. I think for the Cleveland Browns, it's like if we can keep our defense the way it is, which is one of the tops in the league, and we can have a head coach who, again, can keep the stability that you've had in some respects in the locker room, but elevate this offense to get the most out of the tools that they have and the players that they have. That's what's been missing. I do think that there was more meat on the bone offensively for the Cleveland Browns over the past years, even if it wasn't a bunch of world-beating talent. And I think that's what the Browns are after, somebody who can stabilize that piece of their team.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see about the quarterback angle of this. Adam, you heard Dan say his first reaction was about the Giants side of this. What do you expect the Giants to do now when it comes to that OC position?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I think a couple of these teams are in this situation. The New York Giants thought there was a real possibility that Todd Monken would be their offensive coordinator. So they're out now looking at names and candidates that can come in and take over this job. The Baltimore Ravens at one point thought that Joe Brady would be a possibility. He got the Buffalo Bills head coaching job, so he's not going to Baltimore. So the Ravens are looking. So it's interesting to me right now. We've got the Ravens searching for an offensive coordinator and their former head coach, John Harbaugh, searching for an offensive coordinator at the same time. And we also have a team in the Cleveland Browns here that hired a coach who's going to be 60 years old on February 5th. The only time he's ever been a head coach was in college in 2013 to 15 for Southern Mississippi. That's his only head coaching experience. He has not been a head coach in the NFL level. It's something he's always wanted to do. He's wanted to be a head coach. He has essentially aspired for this day. He was actually a finalist for the University of Michigan head coaching job that went to Kyle Whittingham last month. And so this is a situation where basically Todd Monken has got the chance of a lifetime, and where we've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers hire a veteran in Mike McCarthy, and we saw what it meant for him to get that job in the city that he was from. I think Todd Monken is going to be similarly moved by finally getting a head coaching job near the age of 60 in Cleveland, and brings a lot of veteran experience to that franchise now.
So in relation to the Giants, because I do think this is massively impactful for them. This is a significant loss for Jackson Dart. I think the first call that I think the Giants have to make is now to Mike LaFleur, little brother of Matt, who's I know in the conversation for Arizona, was with the New York Jets. I want that type of system, and if he's willing, because he's a lateral move, but he doesn't call the plays in LA, okay? So Mike LaFleur would be one. I think the second name that we'll probably hear is Charlie Weiss Jr., who was the play caller at Ole Miss. And I love Charlie Weiss Jr. I think he's brilliant. How much does he really have a feel for NFL offense? I think those are worthy, at least, questions and concerns that have to be asked. Nate Shieldhouse, Davis Webb. So those would be like the 3 or 4 names that if you're the Giants, it becomes a thing of urgency right now that you can't miss out on other names now.
I hear you on Charlie Weiss Jr. And listen, I'm not saying he's not going there, but I was with him for like a 3-week stretch during the college football playoff. He was adamant that his next stop at LSU is where he wants to be, and Lane Kiffin's done a lot to try to hold on to him there. But the pairing back up with Jackson Dart is interesting. All right, we have some shocking news to get to. Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Shefty, we begin with you. Fill us in on this.
Well, this is a situation where essentially Bill Belichick is not gaining entry as a first-time Pro Football Hall of Famer. And there are very few people who appreciate history in the National Football League more than Bill Belichick. For him to be shut out of this honor obviously has to be highly disappointing and, frankly, as everybody looks at it, quite embarrassing. How voters could get to a conclusion where a man who essentially has won 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach of the Patriots, who was in charge of the winningest dynasty that we've seen in football in the free agent age, doesn't make it in his first year of eligibility is utterly ridiculous. It is completely unacceptable and inexcusable. And I think that there are a lot of voters out there that love to use this job for a platform. They get access, they get interviews, they get prestige. Well, again, if you're going to get the benefits, let's hear the names of the people who didn't vote for him and have it be explained why they didn't. Obviously, people have referred to Spygate and Deflategate, but it is hard to imagine that there wasn't a part of this, if there were as many votes to keep Bill Belichick out, that was personal. Somehow people allowed personal feelings to enter into this because Bill was not always warm and fuzzy with the media, and that's not how the vote is supposed to be conducted. The question is, does the person belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Yes, he does. Does he belong in the first ballot? Unquestionably. He was kept out because apparently, according to Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta, there were people who felt that Bill Belichick should pay a penalty, pay his penance, and not be granted admission in his first year of eligibility. It makes everybody look bad. It's a poor look. The other thing about it that I think people haven't even talked about is it backs up the process 1 year. So we all know that Bill Belichick is going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That'll be next year. So that's one less spot next year for somebody who has to wait another year. There are enough worthy people waiting. It's ridiculous to make them wait even longer.
Yeah, Adam, that's extremely well said. And again, you see it there, failed to get to 40 votes in the 50-person committee. Patrick Mahomes, I agree. He says, insane. Don't even understand how this could be possible. So how exactly is this possible? Well, Sal Paolantonio joining us now. And Sal, you are a Hall of Fame voter. You've made it very clear you voted for Bill Belichick. Take us inside the process for voting in this category for coaches, contributors, and seniors specifically.
Well, Laura, the bylaws of the Hall of Fame prevent me from really going into the nitty-gritty details of the meeting or what people said, and I won't do that. I will let other people speak for themselves. But when you look at it, it was a two-tier voting process, and you can see there up on your screen, the first tier was the seniors, the contributor, and the coach. So you had 5 candidates, and we were asked to vote for 3 finalists. And you have to get 40 votes for induction. And whatever the reasons were, there were some voters who left Bill Belichick off that ballot. And it could have been as simple as they wanted to put somebody else in and they figured Bill Belichick had enough votes. I didn't feel that way. I felt like with all the things said about Bill Belichick's career, the number one thing was his accomplishments and his credentials outweighed everything else. And he should have been, as Adam said, a first ballot Hall of Famer. But apparently he was left off the ballot for some of the voters. And that's up to them. They have to make their decision. They have to defend it. It's perfectly fine. I don't want to go into the business of what other people voted. But the bottom line is he's off the ballot.
All right, interesting perspective there from Sal. You're joining us in just a little bit with some more on the Eagles OC job. We'll get to that. I think they should make these votes public, but either way, only 4 head coaches in NFL history have won at least 300 games, and only 4 coaches have at least 6 championships, Super Bowl or pre-Super Bowl era. There are only 2 coaches that have hit both milestones. Papa Bear George Halas, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Bill Belichick. Look, there's just 2 on that list. When you look at this, Dan, you hear all of it. What's your reaction?
Well, my question, I don't know if Sal Pal or Shedeur are still here to answer it, but there's a new voting process, at least to my knowledge this year. Can't the Hall of Fame take a step back after realizing the voting process flaw and just be like, let's rectify this, let's fix this?
What do you think? Can they revote?
Well, they're not going to re-vote this year. The vote has been cast and the ballots are collected. And so Bill Belichick will never be a first-time entrant into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I think that's a miss. I think that's a miss by the Hall of Fame because I know it's a new process. I would say this.
It's a big miss.
I think that the votes absolutely should be made public.
Yep.
If you're not comfortable with your vote being public, then you should not have the right to vote. I think the second thing is you have to find a way to remove the bad blood of the feelings that are attached to it. I vote for some of these NFL awards. Is there a bias that takes place? I'd be lying to everybody in saying no, where I'm a human being. So I understand that there's a bias for some of these voters, but you have to have the capability to remove the bad blood from it. I think the third thing is you should require an explanation for how you vote. And if you can't justify why you voted that certain way, then you should once again not have a vote. I think the last thing is this. It's not the committee's job to dole out the penalty. Bill Belichick already received penalties from both those situations. He had picks taken away. He had fines levied on him. So the penance was already paid. It's not your job to then serve what you think would be the proper penalty to somebody. That's not what the committee's role is.
And football is for everybody. You're not the authority of football. That's what I would say to them. If Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then there's not a single person in the history of everything that is anything. It's as simple as that. It's really a travesty because of the reverence and respect that you know that Bill Belichick has for the game of football, what he's meant to the game of football, and how much high regard he puts that in. Like, he loves the Pro Football Hall of Fame, right? And I believe in the sanctity of football. I've literally dedicated my entire life to it, which is your results should speak for themselves. And clear bias, vendettas, or gatekeeping should never interfere with what is right. And this is absolutely wrong because, to your point, there is no rationale. There is no explanation for why he's not there. There was an opportunity to set a new standard for what a first ballot Hall of Famer should be. Instead, they've diminished the value, they've made it a spectacle, and they've interfered in a way that it shouldn't be interfered with, especially with somebody like Bill Belichick.
Don't forget this. If you're going to justify it because of Spygate and Deflategate, Tom Brady was on that team, Gronk was on that team, Randy Moss was on that team, Julian Edelman was on that team, Matthew Slater's on that team, Ty Law's on that team, Vinatieri's on that team, Vince Wilfork's on those teams.
Yeah, Adam.
When's the line get drawn?
Right. No, it's a good point. Adam, when it comes to like making the votes public and some of the things, like will we ever actually see that happen here? Because the other thing I would say is you're seeing a lot of voters that did come out and say they voted for Bill Belichick as a first ballot Hall of Famer who are mad about what this looks like for the entire committee.
It's a terrible look for the committee. And there was a brief period of time early in my career that I was a voter for about 4 years. And I always remember people saying one of the qualifications for whether you were voting yes or no on a candidate was, can you write the history of the game without this person? And there is no way to write football history without Bill Belichick, which automatically makes him a pro football Hall of Famer. The fact that there are voters who are too self-important that didn't see it that way, that allowed their personal feelings and beliefs to get in the way of that, makes the whole Hall of Fame look completely ridiculous. Adam Vinatieri is probably going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. In what universe, with no disrespect to Adam Vinatieri, does Adam Vinatieri belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame before Bill Belichick? But that's the universe we're living in. It's an embarrassment and a blight on the entire process.
Yeah, Adam Vinatieri, I'm sure, would say that Bill Belichick should be in there right with him or before him. Just shocking. And by the way, only Don Shula has more wins, 347 as a head coach, than Belichick with 333. You could find so many more numbers, statistics to back this up, but I think what Adam said is most important. You can't write the history of this sport without Bill Belichick. We're just getting started on NFL Live. The Eagles